No, the Democratic-led fight to make sure that people in America who are below the poverty line, including 16 million children and 1 in 8 Americans, no, the fight to make sure they don't go hungry is not over, because there's still some talk about reopening the government that could take 24 to 72 hours, maybe, with the return of Congress. Forget that. Worry about everyday Americans and how they're fighting for their food security. They're fighting for food, and we're fighting right along with them. There's even new developments from something I argued and did a hot take on earlier today. We've got a new ruling by a second judge, this time in Massachusetts, Judge Talwani, who has joined in her own way. She's covering the rear flank, if you will, of Judge McConnell in Rhode Island, who started this whole thing off with his temporary restraining order and enforcement order to make sure Donald Trump and his administration don't starve Americans and make the final $3 billion of the $8 billion that's owed to Americans. Now, so far, the kind of the pincher movement, the rock and a hard place of the two suits that were filed together, one by Democracy Forward, representing churches and cities in Rhode Island in front of Chief Judge McConnell. The one filed by 23 attorneys general, led by the Massachusetts AG and Rob Bonta, the AG of California, in Judge Talwani in Massachusetts courtroom, that they have worked together to whipsaw the Trump administration, with the benefit and the help of Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court and the First Circuit. I'm going to tie and weave it all together here. You're on Legal AF YouTube. It is Monday. We're in the beginnings of our 10 videos for today that are important, curated material you need to know at the intersection of law and politics. Okay, let's go over to what's developed in the last few hours here, even on Monday, because we've got a new filing at the United States Supreme Court by Donald Trump. Looks like I'm doing shadow puppets in the back, the way the light is streaming. There it is. Sorry about that. We've got a United States Supreme Court filing as well, and Ketanji Brown Jackson ordering that briefs be filed by today. She's not even waiting around for a 48-hour period. She shortened her deadline to the government. Now let me back up a bit and tell you how we got here. Judge McConnell on Thursday issues an enforcement order about his original temporary restraining order, requiring the Trump administration to make the full $8 billion in payments so that people aren't shorted in their electronic cards to go buy food to keep their family alive. Sounds like a good thing. Sounds like a not red and blue thing. No, Donald Trump's always on the wrong side. He's on the side of starving and removing the dignity and putting into emotional distress other Americans, including ones that vote, by the way. I have a reminder for Donald Trump. Just because you're below the poverty line doesn't mean you aren't voters. Remember that in red states, and remember that when you're reviewing and analyzing the polling that shows you're going to lose because of these depraved, immoral positions. 2 cases get filed. Judge McConnell issues the order first. Judge Talwani kind of hangs back a little bit in Massachusetts. McConnell's order, make the payments immediately by this past Friday. Trump issues $5 billion in payments, but then holds back the other 3 and then spends the weekend threatening the states to claw back the 5 he already paid. Again, harming poor Americans and those below the poverty line. Judge Talwani, watching all of this, the 23 attorneys general now leap into action. I'm going to have Rob Bonta, the attorney general for California, with me on an interview for tomorrow in the morning about all of these issues. They now leap forward. They filed their second motion for temporary restraining order, just as the order from the First Circuit came out, I'll tell you about in a minute. And there they say, and I'll read it to you, plaintiffs come to the court meaning Judge Talwani in Massachusetts, for the 3rd time in 13 days to seek emergency relief for yet another unlawful and senseless act by the U.S. Department of Agriculture in their funding and oversight of SNAP. And they wanted emergency relief. So what did Judge Talwani do? She issued her order in the last few hours, and let me read it to you. So she's handling the rear flank for Judge McConnell, if you will, sort of working together. Judge Talwani, good cause shown. The USDA memo from the weekend issued on Saturday directing that basically that the SNAP payments that were made in full by states be clawed back and issue and get it back and undo those steps. that she is blocking that order until she gets everybody together in another hearing on the 13th in 3 days, another hearing to discuss these matters. So she's doing her job with temporary restraining order over here, holding the pin, holding the ring to make sure people get paid. So no pullback of their money. Every hour the people are looking at their electronic credit card, debit cards to see if there's money in there to buy milk and bread. That should not happen. Now, while that's going on, before I get to Ketanji Brown Jackson and what she's doing and the new filing at the Supreme Court, we've got the ruling from late last night of the First Circuit. 3-judge panel, 1 Obama, 2 Biden, written by a great judge there, written by Judge Rickleman, formerly an advocate on behalf of reproductive rights in her career. She writes that the First Circuit's not going to block for the duration of the appeal Donald Trump's refusal to top up and pay the $8 billion in SNAP payments in full because he's likely to lose at a full trial. She also reminds everybody about the program and how important it is to 1 in 8 Americans. She talks about it as being the bulwark to providing food security to Americans and the dignity that goes along with that. And that if they take away food security, there's a cascading impact and effect on the mental and physical and medical condition of people. And it's a basic right not to be hungry in this country, period. And so they have, just as Ketanji Brown Jackson asked them to do, because when she, on Saturday, when she issued a temporary administrative stay, which turned out to be for less than 48 hours. She wanted the First Circuit to make its ruling quickly. Now, that was a master class in stroke by Ketanji Brown Jackson, for which she took a lot of heat because it outmaneuvered the Trump administration, because now they got to go to the Supreme Court and beg the Supreme Court to let them starve poor Americans. And also she's noticed, I'm sure, that Donald Trump's been flip-flopping about the issues of pay, no pay. First, he said he couldn't make the $4.5 billion in payment. Then he made a $5 billion payment. He said it would take weeks. It took hours. Then he let it go. Then he tried to claw it back. In the meantime, the government is open or not open. So she's watching this all play out on another chessboard level, including about knowing that the $5 billion had already been paid out to the Trump administration. Now, we now have a new order after the First Circuit came out. Ketanji Brown Jackson, following it, issued an order that the Trump administration let the Supreme Court know by 4 o'clock today what they're going to do. And we already have the new letter that's been filed by the Trump administration showing that they've been had by Ketanji Brown Jackson. They say that they're going to be filing their papers by 4, but also there's a move afoot to end the shutdown. And if that proposal is adopted by the houses of Congress and signed by the president, that shutdown would end and would moot the appeal, the application for relief. So they're conceding that they'll make the payments as part of the shutdown ending. So again, undermines their call for an emergency. And they also tell the court that Judge Talwani has issued what they call a purported stay, I think it's a stay, of the memo trying to claw back the money. And I'll put that up on Legal AF Substack, signed by John Sauer. So here's where we are. Ketanji Brown Jackson on Saturday blocks the funding of the remaining $3 billion, but only for less than 48 hours to give the First Circuit time to rule, knowing that the First Circuit was going to rule against Trump. First Circuit rules, 23-page decision. Judge Rickleman writes it, and it refuses to block the payment of the $3 billion. Then Ketanji Brown Jackson, within hours of that, issues an order that by 4 o'clock today, that the Trump administration tell the Supreme Court what they're going to do. In the meantime, Judge Talwani in Massachusetts, to back up the order of Judge McConnell in Rhode Island, issues her order blocking the clawback efforts by Donald Trump to take back the $5 billion over the weekend, which requires John Sauer for the Department of Justice to run into the Supreme Court, say they're going to meet the 4 o'clock deadline, but they also wanted the Supreme Court to know that if the government reopens all their appeal, so therefore no more emergency, will go by the wayside. And that there's been a stay of their order related to clawback. Again, they got outsmarted by Ketanji Brown Jackson. You see how that first domino led us to where we are right now. I'm glad you're here. Hit the free subscribe button. It's moving at a velocity that even shocks me, this story. But I'll do the coverage for you here and on Legal AF, the Substack, during live reporting. Got a live report up there today with Adam Klasfeld I think you'll enjoy. So become a member here on Legal AF YouTube. Become a member on Legal AF Substack. These are the ways to keep Legal AF community involved, keep our podcast on the air, keep my 40 videos a week that I do for you here and on Legal AF YouTube channel up and running. Become a paid member, $6.77 a month, and we will overwhelm you with this kind of content and knowledge and information that you need to know at this moment in time when we're dealing with such a lawless presidency. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.